Well, first I have to say a big thank you to Heaven Hill Distillery for sending me today's sample of the newest release of their Bernheim barrel-proof wheat whiskey. This is batch A224. We're going to talk about this today on the My Bourbon Journey Whiskey Review channel. So as I mentioned in the beginning, we're talking about the newest release from Heaven Hill. This is their Bernheim barrel-proof straight wheat whiskey. So again, this is coming off something that was a little bit new or introduced last year. So we're going to see how they're going to kick off the year of 2024 with, again, their barrel-proof straight wheat whiskey. This is going to be interesting. So a little bit about what this one actually is. So as I had mentioned, batch A, first release of the year, to February, obviously 24 for the year 2024. This one was coming in at 125.2 proof. Mash bill on this is, again, a little bit different, unique, something that we're not all kind of accustomed to, but 51% wheat, 37% corn, and 12% malted barley. So this is going to introduce a slightly different profile than coming off of something like their barrel-proof Larceny or their Elijah Craig barrel-proof. This batch is non-age stated, but they've suggested that the ages within the batches are anywhere from 7 to 9 years old. And the MSRP on this, in all honesty, is a pretty friendly $65. With that being said, let's go ahead and nose and taste this thing and give you guys an idea of what this one's going to have to offer. So as you can see, beautiful, kind of rich, kind of more mahogany, deep, rich copper type of color, moving the whiskey around the glass a little bit. Really beautiful legs so far on this. So I'm liking so far what I'm seeing. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into the nose. So my very first thought is right out of the gate, this honey nut Cheerio kind of note. More dark fruits. This feels like heavy raspberries, blackberries, plum, things along those lines. Nice barrel influence without it being over oaked. You definitely get some of that barrel or barrel char influence. Some more of those doughy notes that you typically will get from a wheated bourbon or a wheated whiskey in this case. It almost reminds me of a fried bread dough, something that my grandmother used to make back in the day that had a little bit of kind of spice, butter, sugar, some cinnamon, things along those lines put on there. Maybe that's in combination of that kind of honey nut Cheerio note. So far, I'm really digging the nose on this. There's still this softness to it. And oftentimes that is something I'll pick up, on a wheated bourbon or a wheated whiskey, again, in this case. Not getting a lot of heat, even at that, 125.2 proof. I'm not getting a lot of ethanol or what feels to be some heat coming off so far. Nice kind of brown sugar. There's something that's got that kind of molasses, brown sugar kind of feel to it. Again, nice vanilla, some caramel that's there. Maybe even a little hint of like a butterscotch note. And very nice kind of vanilla notes that are on this as well. And something I'm also picking up a little bit here is, even though this is high wheat, 51%, it's still high corn at 37%. I am getting a little bit of a corn presence on this as well. More importantly, let's see how this one's going to taste. Cheers. So first I want to address kind of the mouthfeel. There's a little bit of creaminess that's there to it. Maybe a little thin, not overly viscous or anything so far. But what I will say is there's this beautiful, again, honey nut Cheerio. A lot of honey on this one, actually. Nice vanillas, nice caramels. It's very soft. It feels soft, elegant, velvety. That is one nice thing that I'm kind of liking about it that makes the thinness kind of not be as much of a factor. There's that velvety kind of characteristic that it has to it. You are picking up a little bit more of that kind of wheat grain, in addition to some of the corn grain that's there on it as well. So I think you're getting both parts of it, but still kind of blended or mingled, pretty well so far. Also, the more I kind of sip on it there after that second or third sip, it does start to kind of heat up or feels like there's this warming effect. I wouldn't say you're hit with like a lot of burn from heat, but there's more of that like warming effect, which is much more pleasant as far as I'm concerned. Again, really nice, rich, heavy vanilla notes, maybe even like a vanilla custard, something along those lines. Little more of that Butterscotch has kind of come through a little bit that I was picking up late on the nose. More of those brown sugars, maybe even a slight molasses feel to it. Right away, this is kind of drinking to me more like a bourbon than it is necessarily a wheat whiskey. Now, I know there's some out there that are heavier or higher percentage of wheat. This I like a little bit more because it's drinking much more bourbon-esque and much more approachable, I think, for people who enjoy bourbon. And this is falling right into that category. In addition to that kind of warming effect, there is a nice spice backbone that this thing has to it. So don't let the fact that this is, 51% wheat, 37% corn, 12% malted barley kind of trick you into thinking you're not going to get any spice or anything along those lines. There is definitely spice and that warming effect that you're picking up. Really nice, again, heavy, rich vanillas, vanilla custard, some butterscotch, that honey nut Cheerio. A lot going on actually with this whiskey. Yeah, and I'll also say again, like I was picking up before, that softness, that kind of doughy or bready note that I kind of referred to as like a fried dough or a fried bread dough is definitely there. I think you're getting all of those attributes of there being this very savory yet decadent side of it. So it's kind of blended pretty well from that side of things. So it's something, honestly, that I'm really, really enjoying. And I think it feels like a whiskey that the longer you kind of sit down with it, maybe the more it changes, maybe as it sits again in the glass, it just opens up a little bit more and really starts to kind of hit its stride. Also a little bit of like a chocolate kind of note, I think mixed with that grain note, almost has the slight effect of a not so sweet chocolate chip cookie. Something that's not a profile that I get on many things, but with the combination of that wheat and that doughiness, a little bit of chocolate there, again, makes it feel a little bit like a less sweet chocolate chip cookie. So something I'm kind of also digging with this one. More of that barrel char, barrel influence starting to kind of come out. So again, I think the waves that this has, that it's kind of displaying, is really nice. I think it just has a great balance to it, and I'm liking how it's starting to evolve. And again, like I mentioned before, I think this is a whiskey that as you sit down with it and it sits in the glass for a little bit and you kind of continuously sip on it, it's going to change. It just feels like it wants to get, I don't want to say better, but just kind of continue to shine and maybe bring a little bit more out that you weren't getting from the prior sip. And here's also one of the things you get when you've got high grain components from each side. So again, this one 51% wheat, 37% corn, 12% malted barley. You are still picking up on the subtle grain profile of each one, yet all blended, I think, extremely well together. So I think for anybody who hasn't had this or coming off of even some of their prior batches, this feels like this whiskey is starting to evolve more. So as we've watched kind of some of the Larceny barrel proofs, in our opinion, improve over the years, this feels like that's happening with this new Bernheim barrel proof wheat whiskey. And I'm excited and encouraged to then see where maybe the B batch goes from here. But overall, I think if this is something that you haven't had, I'm going to say at $65, I think it's priced perfectly. Again, 7 to 9 years old in terms of the whiskeys that are blended within this batch. 125.2 proof, so a great proof on this. It offers, I think, an awful lot for that whiskey enthusiast or someone looking for something slightly different. So I would highly recommend maybe picking this up and just trying. Generally speaking, what it is that Heaven Hill does and the whiskeys that they continuously put out to market, this just kind of falls in line again with a lot of the other great releases. Again, the Larceny barrel proof, the Elijah Craig barrel proof, now their Bernheim barrel proof straight wheat whiskey just kind of continues their legacy. And again, like I mentioned before, if this is something that you can find or see at $65, the proof point The ages of these whiskeys, again, fantastic, and I don't think I could recommend it more. So thank you guys so much for tuning in today. More importantly, have you had some of the prior batches? And if so, let me know your thoughts on that. And again, if you're excited to try this newest batch, I'm going to say it's a buy. I would recommend picking this one up. And if nothing else, it adds something slightly different to your kind of whiskey collection. So if you'd like to follow me, you can on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of those places at My Bourbon Journey. If you'd like to help support the channel and become part of the Mash and Journey Whiskey Club, make sure you check out the Patreon link in the description below. Thank you again, guys, so much for tuning in today. And remember, it's about the journey and not the destination. Cheers.